Powerless Mage presents. Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, every single moment, pretty much from when you wake up, your brain is constantly working. It's observing, concluding, acting. You're always classifying things, putting them in boxes, making decisions. This whole process, this non-stop mental hum, that's what we're talking about today. Judgment. But let's be real here. For a lot of us, maybe most of us, that judgment engine, it's running completely on autopilot. And that often leads to, well, stress, conflict, feeling confused. Because we're just reacting all the time, aren't we? Reacting to everything coming at us instead of consciously choosing how we respond. It makes you feel powerless, really, like you've handed over your own ability to discern things clearly. So today, we're going deeper than just understanding how judgment works. We have a very practical mission here, a persuasive one, even. We've drawn from this really insightful, reflective essay. It basically gives us actionable blueprints to transform how we relate to judgment. The promise here is a real, noticeable upgrade in your quality of life. We're here to help you reclaim your mental clarity.
That's a great way to put it, because what we've gathered isn't, dry academic stuff. Think of it more like a practical manual for mental strength in today's world. It's distilled from some serious reflection, and the only goal, really, is to give you, our listener, these precise, usable insights. Little nuggets of knowledge, the kind that help you shake off that emotional weight, that unnecessary worry, and gain real clarity to make sure your decisions actually line up with what you intend.
Right, intentions versus automatic reactions.
Exactly. And to build on solid ground, we need to, immediately toss out that old dictionary definition, you know the one.
Ability to distinguish right from wrong, something like that?
Yeah, that one. It's just insufficient. It's kind of a trap, actually. It's too passive. It doesn't capture the output, the actual result of the judgment process.
Okay, so if that definition is too passive, too simple, what do we replace it with? We need something more robust, more action-focused to build on. What's the core concept we need right now?
The definition that really shifts your perspective is this one. Judgment is the act of establishing resolutions based on properties, objects, people, places, and events.
Establishing resolutions.
That phrase, establishing resolutions, that's the critical part. It takes judgment from just passively noticing something to being an active process aimed at a result, a resolution. We look at the properties of whatever's in front of us, a conversation, a product, even a memory. Could be objective properties, could be subjective ones. And we use those properties to arrive at a conclusion, which is basically a decision or, a plan of action. If you really grasp that resolution is the built-in, unavoidable endpoint of any judgment, well, then you suddenly have more control over the steps leading up to it.
That makes a lot of sense. If the goal is a resolution, then the whole process leading up to it has to be geared towards that outcome. Okay, so we've nailed down that core idea. Judgment is about establishing resolutions. Now we can sort of zoom in on the structure, the architecture of how we actually form these resolutions. The source material breaks it down really clearly. It says every single judgment, whether it's a huge life decision or just, picking a brand of cereal, it always goes through three basic steps, one after the other. We're calling them the 3 pillars of resolution.
That's right, 3 pillars.
And what's kind of wild is how fast this happens. Like even a snap judgment you make in traffic, or when you glance at an email subject line. Your brain still zips through these 3 stages: segregation, discrimination, and sense.
Okay, let's start with pillar 1. This one might seem obvious, but it's actually super important and maybe a bit underrated. It's segregation. This is basically the first move. You isolate the specific, the object, idea, action that you're going to judge. You identify it as its own distinct thing. And crucially, you decide on the specific criteria you're going to use to measure it.
Hang on, let me push back on that a little.
Right.
Is segregation really more than just identifying the subject? Like, if I see a mug, I identify it. Mug. Isn't that segregation? Why the extra step about criteria?
Good question. Because just identifying the mug, that's still kind of passive observation. Segregation, in the context of judgment, is an active choice about your yardstick, your metrics.
Right.
So with the mug, you have to decide, okay, what am I judging about this mug? Is it how it looks? Does it keep my coffee hot? Is it sturdy? Did it cost too much? Segregation is actively deciding which aspect you're focusing on, breaking it down so your judgment isn't just a vague feeling, but a precise check against the standard you've chosen.
Okay. So it's not just what you're judging, but how you're judging it. The specific angle.
Precisely. And this ability to break things down, to segregate effectively, is what gives judgment its power and its nuance. The essay uses a great example, judging a movie. Most people just slap one label on the whole thing. It was bad or it was great.
Yeah.
But if you consciously segregate, you can break that movie down into its parts. You isolate the music, then the acting, then the plot. direction. Suddenly, one big, potentially unfair, bad movie label can become 4 or 5 separate, distinct judgments based on specific criteria.
Right, and that's where the control comes in, isn't it? If you segregate properly, you might say, okay, the movie as a whole didn't work for me because the plot was a mess, but you can still accurately resolve that the musical score was actually brilliant, or that one actor gave an amazing performance. That breakdown stops one bad part from dragging everything else down with it.
Exactly. It prevents contamination, you could say. Which leads us neatly into pillar 2. Discrimination. So you've isolated the unit, you've decided on your criteria. Now, discrimination is where you actually deliver the verdict. You assign the label. This is the moment you differentiate the qualities. Is it good or bad? True or false? Guilty or innocent? Useful or useless?
So discrimination provides the core label that feeds the final resolution. But what strikes me here is how subjective that label often is, right? Discrimination seems totally dependent on the person doing the judging or the standards they've picked up along the way.
Absolutely. It's incredibly relative. Think about, say, 2 seasoned food critics tasting the exact same complex dish. Critic A values traditional techniques and subtle flavors. They might discriminate the dish as, overwrought or confused, a negative label.
Right.
Critic B champions culinary innovation and bold contrasts. They might taste the same plate and discriminate it as daring or groundbreaking, a positive label.
Same food, same ingredients, totally different labels.
Exactly. The physical properties of the dish, the textures, the temperatures, the ingredients, they're identical. But the discrimination, the assigned label, is poles apart. Why? Because their internal criteria, their past experiences, their personal taste, it all filters that final verdict. And this inherent subjectivity is why we constantly need to check our premises, especially back in that segregation stage. What criteria am I actually using here?
Okay, so segregation is setting the stage and the rules. Discrimination is assigning the label based on those rules, which means pillar 3, the sentence must be the outcome. The so what part, this is where the judgment becomes tangible, where it actually translates into an action or a resolution that changes something either internally or externally.
Precisely. The sentence is the consequence made manifest. It's the resolution taking form.
Let's use a really down-to-earth example. Say I'm trying out some new project management software. I segregate its features, speed, user interface, cost. Then I discriminate based on my criteria. Let's say I find the user interface clunky or unintuitive. That's the negative label. The sentence isn't just me thinking, this is annoying. The sentence is the action. I decide to uninstall it. Maybe I write a negative review online and I start looking for a different tool. Those actions are the resolution.
That's a perfect practical example. Or, going back to the interpersonal example from the source material. Someone's behavior triggers your internal filters. You segregate their actions based on your criteria for trustworthiness, perhaps. You then discriminate their behavior, assigning the label unpleasant or maybe unreliable. The sentence is the concrete external step you take because of that label. You might decide to avoid future interactions, limit conversations, or maybe even end the relationship. That's the resolution in action. And here's a key point. If the judgment doesn't actually lead to some kind of resolution, whether it's an external action, an internal emotional shift, or a change in your plans, it hasn't really completed the cycle. It just remains a fleeting thought, not a fully formed judgment with a sentence.
So what this means for you, the listener, is that by understanding this 3-part anatomy, you suddenly have levers you can pull at each stage. You can consciously choose your criteria during segregation. You can pause and check your biases before assigning a label in discrimination. And you can deliberately choose a constructive, appropriate response in the sentence phase.
Exactly. Mastering this anatomy is step 1 in reclaiming your mind, taking back control. If you're feeling stressed or constantly reacting without thinking, chances are you're skipping or rushing one of these conscious steps, which naturally leads us to our first moment for reflection. A question for you to consider. Think about a decision you recently made, could be big or small. Can you clearly identify the segregation step? What exactly did you isolate, and what criteria did you use to measure it? Then, what was the discrimination, the specific label you assigned, like too risky or high quality or the battered option? And finally, what was the sentence, the action you took, or the mental resolution you reached as a direct result?
All right, so we've got the how, that 3-pillar process for building a resolution: segregation, discrimination, sentence. Now we need to look at the what. What kind of material are we feeding into this judgment machine? The source breaks this down into 3 main categories, 3 fundamental types of judgment: factual, value, and prescriptive. And getting a handle on the differences between these 3, well, that's absolutely crucial, because as we'll see, mixing them up, like treating a personal feeling as if it's a hard fact, that's really where a lot of the friction and disagreement in life comes from.
Couldn't agree more. That confusion is central.
Yeah.
Let's start with the cleanest one. Type A, factual judgment. You can think of this as the objective measure. It's generally the most straightforward type, and ideally the least emotional. Why? Because it relies purely on logic, on data you can verify, on concrete facts that exist out there in the world, whether we like them or not.
So it's about reality as it is.
Precisely. Its whole purpose is to help us interact with the world based on its actual properties, not just how we feel about it. It's what stops us, ideally, from making catastrophic errors based on wishful thinking.
The painting job example from the source really nails this, I think.
It does. Let's walk through it.
Okay, so the requirement, the factual constraint is the job must be finished in 3 days. That's the objective need. Then you look at the painter. The factual property of this specific painter is that they need 5 days to do the job properly. That's verifiable.
Right. 2 objective facts.
So the factual judgment here is instant and unavoidable. They're disqualified, full stop. It makes absolutely no difference if this painter is your childhood best friend, which would be a strong value preference. And it doesn't matter if they're considered the best painter in the entire country, a potential prescriptive judgment based on reputation.
Nope. Neither of those matters in the face of the objective fact.
The factual constraint, the timeline, overrides everything else. The judgment is clean, logical, based only on that verifiable mismatch. No sentiment involved.
And that stark objectivity is its strength. Now let's contrast that immediately with type B value judgment. This is where objectivity goes out the window and subjectivity takes center stage. Value judgments are all about our affective preferences. It's a bit of a technical term, but basically it means inclinations rooted in our personal history, our experiences, our emotions, or sometimes, honestly, just a gut feeling, a non-rational sense we have about something in reality.
Okay, affective preferences. So
Yeah.
for the listener, the simple translation is just how I feel about this, my emotional connection, my personal case.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's the subjective anchor in our mental world. It's what makes our experience uniquely ours. The source gives the example of liking the color red. Maybe you can't even trace it back to a specific memory or reason. Perhaps it just resonates. You just have this feeling, red makes me feel energetic, or I just like it. That feeling, that internal resonance, that's the affective preference that forms the basis of the value judgment. Red is good, or I prefer red.
And this type of judgment dictates so much, doesn't it?
Wow.
What food we like, what music moves us, what kind of people we're drawn to, even our entertainment choices. So let's take that comedian example and flesh it out a bit more. Say 2 people watch the exact same stand-up special. Person A, maybe they have a very logical, analytical mind. They prefer puns or observational humor. They watch this comedian who does a lot of, say, absurd physical comedy. Person A discriminates the comedian's performance with the label not funny, or maybe stupid.
Okay.
Person B watches the same special. Maybe they grew up with similar cultural references. They love physical comedy. They appreciate absurdity. Person B discriminates the exact same performance with the label hilarious or genius.
Right. Same input, different outputs.
The judgment funny versus not funny isn't an objective assessment of the comedian's timing or joke structure. Not really. It's almost entirely a reflection of the individual's personal, emotional, experiential relationship with that particular style of humor. It's a pure value judgment, driven by subjective taste.
Absolutely. And finally, that brings us to the third category, type C, prescriptive judgment. Now, this one operates quite differently from the other two because often it bypasses our own direct analysis altogether. Prescriptive judgments are based on recommendations, on advice, on trusting the authority or perceived expertise of an external source. It's essentially judgment by proxy based on trust.
Okay. This feels very familiar in the modern world. Like the entire review economy runs on this, right? You haven't seen that new movie yourself. You have no direct factual data, no personal effective experience of it yet. But you read 3 rave reviews from critics you generally trust, plus 2 of your friends whose taste usually aligns with yours absolutely loved it. So, based only on their judgments, your own preliminary judgment, your resolution about this unseen film is, it's probably good, or maybe even I should see it.
Precisely. That conclusion, it's good, isn't derived from facts you've personally verified or feelings you've personally felt. It's built entirely on the accumulated weight of those external opinions you've chosen to trust. And we use prescriptive judgment all the time, often unconsciously, just to navigate life efficiently. We trust a mechanic's judgment about our car's engine. We trust a doctor's judgment about a health issue. We trust a guidebook's judgment about a travel destination. It saves enormous time and cognitive effort.
So, just recognizing which type of judgment you're using in any given moment, that seems like the first big step toward mental clarity. Asking yourself, did I arrive at this conclusion based on hard data? Was it based on my gut feeling or personal taste? Or am I essentially relying on someone else's opinion here?
Exactly. That self-awareness forces you to trace the roots of your certainty or your stress. It helps you identify why you believe what you believe.
Okay, this feels like a good place for another reflective pause, focusing on these three types. Think about the last time you formed a strong opinion about something significant, maybe a major news event, social issue, a political debate. Try to honestly trace back the source of that verdict. Was it primarily rooted in objective facts and verifiable data you encountered? Factual. Was it driven more by your personal feelings, your values, your emotional response? Value revenue. Or was it heavily influenced by trusted external sources, commentators, experts, friends, news outlets, prescriptive? Where did that judgment really come from?
Okay, now we get to the real crux of the issue. The core tension that, according to the source material, generates so much unnecessary friction and stress in modern life. It's this ongoing conflict, this antagonism between factual judgments and value judgments. Remember, factual judgments are trying to understand reality as it actually is. Value judgments are trying to establish our personal emotional connection with reality.
And we need both, right? You can't function without both.
Absolutely. You need factual judgment to say, know that fire is hot and dangerous. You need value judgment to enjoy a sunset or choose friends you resonate with. Both are essential. However, the source issues a pretty strong warning here. When value judgments are allowed to run rampant, unchecked, or, even more critically, when we start mistaking our value judgments for factual judgments, that's when they become a major source of harm, conflict, and internal struggle.
And it gets complicated fast because these value judgments don't exist in a vacuum. We layer them onto everything else going on inside us, don't we? Like our expectations about the future, the social rules we've absorbed, how we see ourselves.
Exactly. It's like adding fuel to the fire.
Life becomes unnecessarily conflictive because we're constantly measuring the world and ourselves against our internal feeling-based standards instead of looking at objective properties.
Right. We're judging reality based on whether it pleases us rather than understanding what it is.
And the expectation trap you mentioned earlier. That seems like the clearest, most universal example of how this causes problems. That movie sequel anecdote really drives it home.
It really does. Let's revisit that. Imagine you watch the first movie in a series, and you absolutely love it. You give it a top-tier value judgment. This is amazing, 10 out of 10. That powerful, positive value judgment about the first film now creates this massive gravitational pull on the future. You automatically generate this huge, often unrealistic expectation for the sequel. Your positive feeling about movie one becomes the only yardstick, the only criterion you're going to use for movie two.
You've already decided what it should be like based on your feelings about the first one.
Precisely. So the sequel comes out, and maybe, objectively speaking, it's actually a pretty decent film. Let's say it's a solid 7 out of 10. Good script, good acting. But because it didn't meet that internal, emotionally charged 10-10 expectation you built up based on your love for the first one, your resulting judgment isn't, hey, that was pretty good. It's, wow, what a disappointment, or even that was terrible. And here's the crucial insight. The disappointment isn't actually caused by the movie itself, by its own properties. The disappointment is caused entirely by the gap between the movie's reality and the expectation you manufactured from a previous value judgment. Your expectation literally blinded you, preventing you from appreciating the sequel for what it actually offered.
Wow. And you can see how that pattern plays out everywhere, not just with movies, but with jobs, relationships, holidays. We apply these maximal value judgments, these intense expectations, onto how our colleagues should behave, how our partner should react, what our weekend should feel like.
Exactly.
And when reality inevitably doesn't match that internal feeling-based blueprint, our subjective value judgment, what do? We disqualify it. We label the colleague inconsiderate, the partner unsupportive, the weekend a failure. It leads to so much unnecessary stress and disconnection.
And perhaps even more damaging, we turn this mechanism inward. We internalize it.
Yeah.
When we fall short of the often impossible expectations society sets, or the ones we set for ourselves, when we fail to meet our own self-assigned value standard, we use those same harsh value judgments to label ourselves. I'm inadequate. I'm a failure. I should be ashamed. That constant self-judgment transforms any potential for growth into this painful, demoralizing internal battle.
Which brings us to how this plays out in the digital age, especially online. This feels like the absolute core danger today. It's this widespread confusion, this deliberate or unconscious blurring of subjective value judgments with objective factual judgments. And it seems driven by this need to present personal opinions as if they're undeniable truths.
Yes, it's rampant.
You see it constantly, right? People spreading flimsy evidence, presenting purely subjective feelings as if they're empirical data. Things like, that company's strategy is objectively failing because, frankly, I just don't like their new logo. Or, this political policy is clearly disastrous because it makes me feel anxious.
Notice the pattern there. The speaker uses words that signal a personal, subjective, affective state I don't like. Makes me feel anxious. But then they package the final discrimination, the label, using words that imply objective reality, objectively failing, clearly disastrous. They're effectively trying to upgrade their personal preference, like this, I don't like this, into a universal, verifiable truth. This is good, this is bad.
And why do people do that? Is it just sloppy thinking, or is there something else going on?
Well, the source suggests we need to consider the underlying motivation, which often ties back into that social conditioning and maybe even ego. Presenting your subjective feeling as an objective fact. It projects an image of authority, doesn't it? Of confidence, maybe even superiority. I don't just feel this way, this is how things are.
Right. It sounds more convincing.
It does, but by constantly blurring that line between personal taste and actual evidence, people contribute to this huge collective mess. It makes shared understanding, reasoned discussion, and just basic mental clarity incredibly difficult for everyone.
It creates this environment where, yeah, facts feel optional, but strongly held feelings feel mandatory.
Precisely. And that's why learning to identify the origin of your own convictions, was this value, fact, or prescriptive, is absolutely fundamental for regaining mental sovereignty.
It requires real self-awareness, especially in those moments when we feel absolutely certain about something.
It really does. Which leads perfectly into our next reflection point. Think about the last time you shared a strong opinion, maybe online, maybe just talking with family or friends. How often, if you're really honest with yourself, do you find yourself presenting a subjective preference, your personal feeling, your affective connection to the topic, as if it were an undeniable objective truth? How often does I don't like it become it is bad? Okay, before we dive into the specific problems this causes, let's just quickly recenter ourselves on a key point. Judgment itself isn't the enemy here. We need it. It's the fundamental tool we use to make decisions, navigate the world, learn from experience. It's essential.
Right. It's not about stopping judgment altogether.
Exactly. The problems we're about to discuss, the ones identified in the essay, they all stem from how we use judgment, from misapplication, from overuse, or from getting the different types tangled up. The source highlights 3 main ways we tend to misuse this vital mental tool, leading directly to that stress and emotional friction we've been talking about.
Okay, so problem number 1, which we've already touched on quite a bit, is creating unrealistic expectations. That movie sequel example keeps coming back because it's such a clear illustration of how easily we can set ourselves up for disappointment by applying these massive maximal judgments based on, frankly, very little data.
That's the core of it. The essay points out that expectations, when they're rational, should really function more like predictions based on established trends. So if you've seen, say, 9 movies from the same director and 8 of them were stylistically similar and you enjoyed them, it's somewhat reasonable to expect the 10th might follow that pattern. You have a data set.
Okay, that makes sense. A trend.
But what often happens, especially with things we feel strongly about, is we rely on one single reference point. That one amazing first movie, that one perfect first date, that one incredible success at work. Using just one data point makes any kind of valid comparison really difficult, almost impossible. And it sets the bar impossibly high based on an outlier, perhaps.
So the expectation isn't grounded in reality, it's grounded in a single, possibly unique positive memory, a value judgment from the past.
Exactly, and the consequence. When the next experience, the sequel, the second date, the next project turns out to be merely good, or even just average, our judgment isn't based on its actual merits. Our judgment is one of failure or disappointment simply because it didn't replicate that initial peak experience. We let a past value judgment sabotage our ability to appreciate the present reality.
Okay, that's problem 1. Unrealistic expectations based on limited data. What's the second major issue?
Problem 2 is emotional exhaustion from overjudging. This is huge in our current culture. We seem to live under this constant pressure, both internal and external, to be constantly evaluating, labeling, and qualifying absolutely everything around us. All the time. Simultaneously.
Oh yeah, you feel that. Like you have to have an opinion on everything, instantly.
Right. And just think about the sheer mental energy that consumes. Every single thing we encounter seems to demand that we run it through the full judgment cycle. Segregate it, discriminate it, good, bad, right, wrong, better, worse, and then attach an emotional sentence to it. Worry, envy, frustration, satisfaction.
It's like having hundreds of apps running in the background on your phone, just draining the battery.
That's a perfect analogy. The source lists some examples of the kind of things we collectively seem compelled to track, qualify, compare, and stress over things that maybe don't deserve that level of constant mental investment. Think about it. Trying to keep up with complex global economic trends you can't influence. Obsessing over the fluctuating price of, say, imported cheese or some other luxury item, constantly monitoring your body mass index against some rigid ideal, scrutinizing national education rankings compared to other countries, and of course, the big one today, compulsively comparing your social media likes, follower counts, or engagement metrics against literally everyone else online.
Ugh, just listing them is tiring.
Exactly. Each one of those demands cognitive resources. Each one requires a new judgment cycle, often ending in an emotional sentence like anxiety, am I falling behind, or envy, why do they have more, or frustration, this isn't good enough. This constant, often low-level judgmental activity just drains the energy we desperately need for the things that actually do matter, the decisions that genuinely shape our lives.
So the persuasive angle here, the solution implied, is pretty radical, isn't it? It's basically saying, just stop. Choose to stop judging the things that don't actually matter to your core well-being.
It is radical, in a way. It's suggesting deliberate, strategic apathy towards the irrelevant. The insight is that letting go of the need to constantly label and compare things outside your immediate control or core values is one of the fastest routes to better mental health and a more stable mood.
We really need to sit with that for a second. It's almost countercultural. We're talking about finding freedom by consciously not caring about certain things.
Yeah.
Like, if maybe 80% of my daily low-grade stress comes from judging things I can't change, or things that don't impact my fundamental life goals, like, say, the exact quarterly earnings of a company I don't work for, then I'm essentially volunteering 80% of my mental energy for it. Nothing tangible in return, just stress.
That's precisely the point. Your cognitive capacity, your emotional bandwidth, it's finite. It's like your computer's RAM, as you said. Every unnecessary judgment, every pointless comparison, every piece of worry about something irrelevant, it's a background process eating up those resources. If you consciously decide to stop running the judgment cycle on, say, the price of avocados this week, you free up that mental energy. You free up that processing power to focus on something you can influence, like nurturing a relationship, working on a personal project, or simply being more present.
Okay. Unrealistic expectations, emotional exhaustion from overjudging. What's the third big problem?
The third one is maybe the most subtle but deeply ingrained. It's our heavy reliance on binary labels in a complex world. This is our tendency to flatten reality, to squash all the nuance and complexity of life into simple, black and white, either categories, good or bad, right or wrong, success or failure, simple or complex, true or false.
We do love our simple boxes.
We do, and the source suggests this often comes from a mix of things. Maybe some intellectual laziness, binary thinking is just easier, it requires less effort than grappling with nuance, but often it also stems from a deeper fear of complexity. Ambiguity can feel threatening, uncertain. Slapping a simple label on something makes us feel like we understand it, like we have control.
And ego gets involved too, right? The need to be right, the need to categorize quickly to feel secure.
Absolutely. Fear of complexity plus ego is a potent combination. And it turns what could be simple discernment, just noticing the different aspects of something, into this constant internal battle. We expend enormous mental energy trying to force situations, people, or even ourselves into one of two boxes when the reality is almost always somewhere in the gray area, a mix of positives and negatives.
Yeah, you feel that tension. Trying to decide if a job is globally good or globally bad, when really it has some great aspects and some really challenging ones. You tie yourself in knots trying to pick one label.
Exactly. Instead of just acknowledging, okay, this situation has advantages X and Y, but also disadvantages A and B, we torture ourselves trying to arrive at that single, definitive, binary verdict. It creates this internal friction because deep down, we often know that neither label is entirely accurate. Both good and bad are probably true in different ways.
So again, the goal isn't to eliminate judgment. It's about being more selective. Reserve the full judgment process for things that genuinely need a resolution.
Right. And when we do engage in judgment, especially for complex issues, try to use a more nuanced, multifaceted discrimination instead of just reaching for the nearest binary label. Acknowledge the gray.
Okay,
Okay, this feels like a really practical area for self-assessment. Let's frame the next reflective question around this idea of mental energy and focus. Take a look at your typical day, or maybe your typical week. Think about the things that cause you stress or worry. What percentage of those worries, honestly, are directed towards things that you genuinely need to label, qualify, and compare for your core life purpose, for your well-being, for things you can actually control, versus how much of that energy is going towards judging societal noise, things you can't change, past disappointments, or things that just don't fundamentally matter in the grand scheme of your life? Where is your judgment energy actually going? Okay, we spent some time diagnosing the issues: unrealistic expectations, mental burnout from judging everything, getting stuck in black and white thinking. Now let's move into the solutions. The source offers 3 really practical, powerful tools we can use to regain control and empower ourselves mentally.
And as you mentioned earlier, some of these might sound a bit paradoxical at first, like simplifying things by embracing complexity, but they're designed to be effective when you actually put them into practice.
That's right. These are actionable strategies. So the first solution directly tackles that problem of expectations running wild. The main goal here is stabilization. We need to stop our expectations from shooting up to those impossible highs or crashing down into irrational despair. We're aiming for more of an equilibrium. This allows us to judge things, people, situations, sequels, based on what they actually are right here, right now, instead of constantly comparing them to some idealized fantasy in our heads.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we intervene before the expectation gets too inflated?
The source offers 2 specific techniques you can use, ideally during that initial segregation phase, before the expectation really solidifies. The first one is called the mirror. It's a bit counterintuitive. It involves consciously, deliberately making yourself consider the possibility that the outcome you're anticipating will be the exact opposite of what you hope for or expect.
The opposite. Okay, walk me through that with the movie sequel example again. So I love the thrift movie. My expectation is soaring. I'm anticipating another 10/10 masterpiece. How does the mirror work here?
Okay. Using the mirror, you would actively force your mind to visualize the complete opposite scenario. You'd imagine the sequel being truly awful. Picture the acting being stiff and unbelievable. Imagine the music is annoying and derivative. Visualize the plot making absolutely no sense, just a total mess.
Wow, okay. That sounds kind of negative.
It sounds negative, but think about what it achieves. It's not about wallowing in pessimism. It's an intellectual exercise in generating contrast. This technique is particularly useful when your expectation is really strong and positive, but maybe a bit vague. By painting this vivid picture of the worst-case scenario, you're mentally creating an anchor point at the other extreme. You're essentially inoculating yourself against the potential shock of disappointment.
But isn't that just setting yourself up to expect bad things? Like attracting negativity by focusing on it?
That's a really important distinction to make. No, it's not pessimism in the sense of passively accepting a bad outcome. Pessimism just gives up. The mirror technique actively uses the potential bad outcome as a mental tool, almost like a controlled stress test. Think about the result. If the sequel comes out and it's actually that solid 7/10, pretty good, but not the masterpiece you initially hoped for, what's your likely reaction? Because you mentally prepared for a 110 disaster using the mirror, your perception of the 710 isn't crushing disappointment, it failed my 1010 test. Instead, your likely reaction is relief. It wasn't nearly as bad as I imagined. You've actually increased the likelihood of having a positive emotional response by managing the expectation beforehand.
I see. It reframes the whole experience. It's not about expecting the worst, it's about preparing for it so that anything better feels like a win. Generating relief, not despair. Okay?
Exactly. Now, the second technique is a bit simpler, maybe less mentally demanding. It's called denial. This one is best when your expectation is very clear and specific, but maybe you don't have the energy or the creative inclination to vividly imagine the opposite scenario. With denial, you simply affirm to yourself, consciously, that the specific outcome you're anticipating will not be so, or is unlikely to happen exactly like that.
So if I have that huge job interview next week, and I find myself fantasizing about it being absolutely perfect, leading to an immediate offer and celebration.
Right. Using the denial technique, you would gently but firmly interrupt that fantasy by telling yourself, okay, that perfect scenario, exactly like that, it probably won't happen, or simply it will not be so. It's not about convincing yourself it will be terrible, it's just about injecting a small dose of realism, puncturing the bubble of perfection before it gets too big. It's a gentle, corrective nudge.
So whether you use the mirror or denial, the end goal is the same: to significantly reduce the intensity of potential disappointment.
Precisely. When reality inevitably deviates from our idealized expectations, which it almost always does, our mind is already primed. We're less likely to be thrown off balance. We can recognize, okay, this isn't the absolute disaster I considered, or, right, this isn't the perfect outcome I gently denied. This allows for a much clearer, more rational sentence, a more constructive action or resolution to follow. Okay, solution number 2 directly targets that problem of mental exhaustion from judging absolutely everything. The core idea here is about consciously, deliberately choosing to lighten your mental and emotional load. It's about identifying things that you're currently investing a lot of judgment energy into, but that don't actually hold much real value for your life. And then, crucially, redirecting that saved energy towards the things you have consciously chosen as your priorities, your true concerns.
So this is about becoming more selective about where we deploy our judgment resources. How do we do that in practice?
The key tool, the anchor for this whole solution, is one simple but incredibly powerful question. Every time you catch yourself in the act of making a judgment, especially if it's triggering a strong emotional reaction that feels kind of out of proportion, you need to pause and ask yourself this: what really changes?
What really changes? That sounds simple, but I can see how it could be profound. It forces you to weigh the judgment against its actual impact.
Exactly. It triggers an immediate internal cost-benefit analysis. Is the energy I'm spending on segregating this, discriminating it, and forming an emotional sentence? Is it actually worth the tangible difference it will make in my life? Is this judgment truly important?
Let's run the sneaker example through this filter, that dilemma about buying brand name versus generic sneakers.
Okay, so the initial, maybe conditioned, subjective judgment kicks in. Brand name sneakers just feel better, they look cooler, they're superior. My value preference discriminates against the generic pair. I feel a pull towards the brand name.
Right, then you ask the question.
Then I pause and ask, okay, if I follow this judgment, if I buy the expensive brand name pair, what really changes? Well, maybe I get a fleeting moment of satisfaction, or I feel like I fit in slightly better according to some social standard. That's the benefit, but what's the cost? What's the sentence, the resolution? The cost is, I have to sacrifice my budget for things I genuinely enjoy. Maybe no new video games this month. Maybe I have to skip that weekend outing with friends I was looking forward to.
So asking what really changes lays bare the trade-off. It provides the concrete data points needed to evaluate the true value of that initial judgment. Is that tiny temporary status come from the brand name label actually worth sacrificing connection with friends or a hobby that brings real joy? Suddenly, the initial judgment seems less compelling.
Precisely. When you frame it like that, the intense emotional charge around which shoes should I buy often just dissolves. The judgment itself starts to matter a whole lot less. And this is crucial because, as we discussed, these seemingly low-value judgments about brands, about minor social comparisons, about fleeting trends, they are often the ones that generate the most exhausting, high-intensity, yet ultimately pointless emotional reactions. Envy, irritation, momentary shame. They drain our battery without providing any lasting benefit. So consciously freeing yourself from the grip of these low-value judgments automatically creates more mental space, more tranquility.
Okay, that question is powerful. What really changes? Is there a more active technique we can use as well?
Yes, the source offers a really interesting practical tool, almost like a game you play with yourself. It's called the Forbidden Word game.
Forbidden word. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the rule?
The rule is simple, though maybe not easy at first. For a set period, maybe a day, maybe a week, you consciously try to remove certain common, binary, emotionally charged labels from your everyday spoken vocabulary. Words like good, bad, interesting, boring, great, terrible, amazing, awful. Those instant, easy judgment words.
So instead of saying that movie was bad, I have to find another way to describe it.
Exactly. The goal isn't just to sound more sophisticated or articulate, although that might happen. The real goal is to break the habit of instantly slapping an emotional value judgment onto every single thing you observe. When you're forced to describe the movie not just as bad, but maybe as, well, the pacing felt slow in the second act, and I found the main character's motivation unclear.
You're forced back to describing the actual properties, the factual observations, rather than just the emotional label.
Precisely. You have to engage the segregation and discrimination process more thoughtfully, focusing on what is, rather than just your immediate feeling about it. By consciously avoiding these binary, emotional shortcut words in your daily conversations, you're essentially retraining your brain. You're weakening the automatic, habitual link between observation and immediate judgment. And what you'll likely notice is that when you stop instantly labeling everything as good or bad or boring, You significantly reduce that constant low-level emotional hum, that drain on your system that comes with every snap verdict. It leads surprisingly quickly to a greater sense of internal calm.
All right, this brings us to the third solution, which you flagged as potentially the most counterintuitive, but also maybe the most powerful in the long run. It's this idea of achieving simplicity by first embracing complexity, which sounds like a paradox.
It does sound paradoxical, doesn't it? But it's about moving beyond those simplistic binary labels we just talked about and learning the art, the skill of nuancing.
Nuancing. Okay, what does that mean in practical terms?
Well, think about how we learn things. Simplification is necessary at the start. We learn basic categories. We learn black, we learn white. That helps us get a basic grasp. Then maybe we learn about gray, a category between black and white. That's a step towards complexity. But nuancing goes further. It means accepting that even within the category gray, there isn't just one shade. There's charcoal gray, silver gray, dove gray, an infinite spectrum. And each shade has its own unique properties, its own relationship to black and white, its own advantages and disadvantages, depending on the context.
So nuance isn't just acknowledging the gray area, it's appreciating the different shades within that gray area.
Exactly. Nuancing means understanding that while simplifying 75% gray down to just gray might be useful sometimes, reducing it further to just black or white completely strips it of its specific qualities. Maybe its reflectiveness or how it contrasts with other colors is the crucial property in a given situation. If you just call it black, you lose all that vital information.
And this is where that paint anecdote comes back in, right? It perfectly illustrates the real-world cost of mistaking simplification for reality.
Yes, let's revisit that frustration.
You have a customer who, maybe because they're afraid of sounding unsure or dealing with complex color charts, just asks the painter for black paint. Simple request. But what they actually want, what they have in their mind's eye, is that specific shade of 75% dark gray. They've oversimplified their request.
So the painter, operating logically based on the factual judgment of the word black, applies pure black paint.
And instantly there's conflict. The customer says, well, that's way too dark. I wanted something lighter than that.
So the painter, trying to accommodate, maybe tries a standard medium gray. Customer says, no, that's too light now, make it darker.
And you get stuck in this frustrating loop, wasting paint, wasting time, wasting labor, generating annoyance and misunderstanding on both sides.
All because the customer, in an attempt to keep things simple up front, refused to acknowledge the necessary complexity. They wouldn't recognize that gray isn't just one thing and dark gray is still not black. They confused the simple label they used with the nuanced reality they actually desired.
So the core lesson here is investing a bit more mental effort up front to understand and articulate the complexity, the nuances, even though it feels harder initially, actually saves you from much greater frustration, confusion, and rework down the line.
That's the paradox in action. Accepting complexity now leads to genuine simplicity, defined as less friction, less conflict, less wasted effort later on.
It requires a more thorough segregation phase, really digging into the different properties and criteria, but that initial investment pays off enormously.
Exactly. And to help maintain this mindset, this openness to nuance, the source offers two really useful little maxims, like mental reminders.
Okay, what are they?
The first one encourages you to question apparent simplicity and apparent complexity. Nothing is as simple as it seems, nor as complicated as we believe. It reminds you to look deeper than the surface label.
I like that. It cuts both ways.
It does. And the second one is essential for maintaining humility in all our judgments, reminding us that our categories are always provisional. No generalization is completely correct, not even this one.
Okay, that definitely keeps you on your toes. Acknowledge you at the limits of our own understanding.
Precisely. They're just little nudges to stay open, stay curious, and resist the allure of easy, absolute, binary answers when dealing with a complex world. So, with those three solutions laid out, curving expectations, making things matter less, and simplifying by complicating, let's take our final pause for personal reflection. Thinking about your own current challenges, your own mental landscape right now, which of these three solutions feels like the most necessary, the most relevant tool for you today? Is it curving expectations to deal with potential disappointments? Is it making it matter less to reduce daily stress and conserve energy? Or is it simplifying by complicating by embracing nuance to navigate complex situations more effectively? Which one resonates most strongly with your needs right now? #tagged outro.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today, really diving deep into this whole mechanism of judgment. We started by reframing judgment itself, not just distinguishing right from wrong, but seeing it as this active process of establishing resolutions. We broke down its anatomy into those three key pillars: segregation, discrimination, and sentence. Then we identified the three core types: factual, value, and prescriptive, and spent some time on the critical danger of confusing our subjective feelings with objective truths, especially in today's world.
Right, that confusion is key.
And importantly, we didn't just diagnose the problems, the unrealistic expectations, the burnout from overjudging, the trap of binary thinking. We also equipped ourselves, and hopefully you, the listener, with three powerful, practical solutions: proactively curving those expectations, strategically deciding what truly matters by asking what really changes, and finding long-term ease by embracing complexity and nuance upfront.
And the underlying promise here, the persuasive core drawn from the source material, is that by consciously choosing to integrate these ideas, to practice these techniques in your daily life, you genuinely can achieve a demonstrably better quality of life. It's about replacing that constant reactive background noise of autopilot judgment, that stress and friction, with a sense of profound internal quiet and greater tranquility. It's about ensuring your actions, your resolutions, stem from conscious, deliberate choice, not just from conditioned reflexes or fleeting emotions. It leads to clarity.
Clarity and intention.
Exactly. However, as always, I strongly recommend that you don't just take what we've discussed here today as absolute truth handed down from on high. Please test these ideas out for yourself. Experiment with them in your own life. See where they hold truth for you. Find their practical utility in your circumstances. Make this knowledge truly your own through experience. Don't simply take our word for it. Put everything you heard here today to the test. Make this knowledge truly yours.
Remember, the power is yours.
Boxes I prepare, every look a verdict, every sound a score. My mind's a courtroom, always wanting more, and it drains me slow, like static in my chest, trying to